Okay, I know there's a little bit of a delay. Okay, I'm seeing myself, so I think we are live. So good night, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I greatly, greatly appreciate you all. I'm glad to have these wonderful Black men with me and happy to discuss mental health, especially mental health for Black men in public health, because I think it's an important discussion that doesn't happen enough. As we all know, is it National Minority Mental Health Month? I think it is. So I'm glad that also able to like squeeze it in July and get these men who are very busy doing a lot of great things to come together and chat some more. And just to give you a little bit some introductions here, so we have Winston Wellington Wright, MPH. He's a health equity strategist and a public health influencer. He's a program manager of diversity, equity, and inclusion at a large Midwest healthcare system. He is also the co-host of the Healthcare Hustle podcast, which you can find on all podcast platforms. And his LinkedIn page, I believe, is in the description of this YouTube video. Then we have Keith E. Green II, MPH. He is a HBCU thought partner and change agent. He is passionate about mental health and versed in marketing, communication, and program support functions. He currently works as a program manager at the Institute for Capacity Building at the United Negro College Fund. And then last but definitely not least, we have Zamir M. Brown, MPH FRSPH. He is one of many working to heal society. His mission is to make a difference, help the health of society and eradicate health inequities. He is the founder and CEO of Speaker for Health, and he currently works as a senior program associate at the DeBoban Foundation. And I'd firstly like to say that everyone here is on their personal accord. They are not here for the organizations that they work with. They are here as Black men in public health. And if you're watching this, definitely hit the like button. Let us know where you are joining from. We would like this to be a discussion. If you have questions that come up or different things like that, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will definitely loop back around there. So I just wanted to start us off very easily. So where are you all? So where are you standing with your mental health right now? Does anyone want to open up?
I can kick us off, if that's okay, because this has actually been really relevant for me. I think in the last few weeks. So I'm in a space where, recently I think mentally, in every aspect of my life, I've been feeling a bit overextended, right? Just like I've been giving a lot of myself to my job, trying to give a lot of stuff to my relationship, my friends, my family members, my community. And I've really had to take a step back and just be like, man, this is kind of an unhealthy, grind, an unhealthy hustle that you've been on. So mentally, I've really started being really intentional about just checking in with myself and making sure that I have, time, space, and energy just to kind of decompress, gather my thoughts, really collect myself. So that's where I'm at. I'm on my journey of just trying to build the habits up to have better and improve mental health, every single day.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, Winston, that, I took this year really to kind of refocus on myself personally. As he said, I am very involved in the community heavily. I'm involved at work as well, trying to, transform, mindsets of particular HBCU institutions, and also being a father and husband, trying to juggle all that at the same time is overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie to you all tonight. So just really trying to find that balance on saying no to a lot of stuff and really focus on self. If I'm okay, then I can be okay to my family members. So this year has been really a year of kind of self-reflection on what I can't do, and not allow myself at the end of the day to be burnt out by work or by the community, or even just try to be a better individual for my family at the end of the day. So this is, again, I echo my colleagues' comments in regarding to not overextending myself and being more self-aware of myself.
Not to sound like a broken record, but I'm on a journey too. Out to answer the question succinctly, I would say that I feel pretty good, because a few months ago, I definitely realized I was like, I need to step back, I need to relax, and I need to take it easy. I got married at the beginning of the year, got a new job 2 weeks later, started that, moved to a different state at the beginning of January, and then moved to Maryland like just a few months after that. So it's been a whole lot of transition, a whole lot of flux, and, work's, of course, demanding, relationship, requires, like your full self every day. But, I said, what do I need to do to actually show up fully and keep to like what is important, to me and my responsibility? So I said I needed to take some steps back and, and say no, to a lot, not live on LinkedIn the way that I used to, not be on Instagram the way that I used to, so I'm feeling pretty good, right now, really trying to strike that chord of, I'd like to say harmony, because, sometimes it's kind of difficult to find, this 1-to-1 ratio. I'm like, if I continue to put more emphasis on myself and my family and the things that fill me up, especially my faith, then that's going to allow me to continue to perform better at work and all the other things, that now come second to me, which used to be first.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you all sharing that. I think that that's really important that you all are highlighting this and just sharing this. And I think in each of your stories and the mention of like where you are is the realization of your mental health and like what that means for you, and as well as understanding that we are humans and there are many different factors that go into our lives and that are meaningful and purposeful for us, and knowing how to find, I like that Zamir used the word harmony and not balance, because I think balance is overused, that harmony and everything to really push yourself forward. So what were those things that you all were realizing that you needed to step back and like be more intentional in thinking about your mental health and or showing up how you do show up?
I can share my partially dramatic but not so dramatic story at the same time, because I've found out recently that this actually isn't too uncommon. It was late last year. I had to get oral surgery because like one of my back molars like broke, it crumbled in my mouth. And it was because I had for a very long time been grinding my teeth and wasn't really aware of it. And, so that was one of those that was one of the many things that was a wake up call, like you're sitting there, somebody, in your mouth, drilling and taking your tooth out. And it's like, how did I get here? And, that was definitely one of those moments where like, I think I really need to change the way that I'm approaching this thing called life and stop always putting so much pressure on myself, because I think there's always the philosophy, diamonds are born out of pressure. But I mean, pressure breaks your teeth, and I like my teeth, so I need to chill.
And I kind of again add on to what he said. 2 years ago, I felt I was on autopilot. I was just going about life, right? So I think that was the point where I had to admit that I needed help. At that point, I realized that, to be a better fit for the community, for my family, I had to really sit down and evaluate things. So again, just long story short, for 2 years, I had to really, recap myself as far as mentally, spiritually, and physically, so I can be a better individual and be more thoughtful when I, approach any situation now, approach my family, friends, loved ones, and even coworkers. So that was a moment where I felt like, okay, am I still accomplishing what I'm supposed to accomplish, or just on autopilot? So I think now I'm at the point where that I'm able to be more thoughtful on how I engage situations, how I engage, you all as well, and how I engage my coworkers to be a better resource to our communities and our individuals.
I wish I could be as clear and concise as Keith and Zamir, but mine may be a little bit more long-winded. Actually, so about a month ago, I was traveling with my partner to Los Angeles, and I ended up breaking down in the airport. We were having a conversation, and I just started crying. So long story short, and it's, Omari, I was thinking about it a little bit more deeply. The title of this conversation, Black Men in Public Health, right? As public health professionals, and with these lenses and perspectives, we know the nuances of a lot of issues within our world, right? We know the ins and outs of a lot of things, and it can be hard to sometimes absorb those things. So long story short, I was in a situation where in my own personal life, a few young women, obviously Black women, were going through some things that I think we would all speak to being more related to some of the social inequities that have just plagued our communities for generations. And as both a cousin And as an uncle, I was feeling obligated, to be in a position to support, these two particularly young women in my family as much as I could. And I didn't feel like I was getting through, right? And it was something these two individuals were drawing on me for a few weeks. At the same time, right before I took this trip to LA with my fiance, there were a few things that were happening internally within my organization, where I got wind of two things that had happened to my colleagues that were both Black women. So two Black women in my personal life and two Black women professionally, were going through things that, again, just had inequities, written all over them, borderline stuff. And I felt that I was limited within my professional role to be able to do something about that at the same time. So I find myself talking with my fiance about these two instances, about why I'm so mad and frustrated at the world and all these things that are happening. This was before Roe v. Wade. So I'm thinking about this, from a huge national, and global perspective, if you will, as well. And I end up crying. I end up just breaking down and crying in front of my fiance, just saying I feel helpless trying to help people, that I care about. And in two different perspectives or two different avenues, if you will. One was I wasn't getting through my own family. And then the other was I couldn't do what I needed to do. I felt limitless in my position as a professional in my job. And so that's when my fiance was like, I think you need to kind of take a step back from things, Superman, for a second. And that was really the incident that kind of triggered this need for me to go ahead and get some help.
Wow. Well, yeah, that I think it is hard. And a lot of the times, like our symptoms of mental health or like just breakdown of mental health or like just being over capacity shows up in so many ways. And like to that point, I think it's important that we do have those people that are around us that could support and see us and know that we're doing a little bit too much and say, hey, you need to take that time and like really reflect and look back. And I think, as you said earlier, be intentional in how you're thinking about your mental health and how you're showing up in work with your partner in life and all these other aspects. I think that's just so important. Okay, so this is the huge $1 million question here. Why is it difficult for men, and specifically Black men, to have conversations and talk about their mental health?
Go ahead, Winston.
No, Keith, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, I can go really deep with this question. I can go deep far as, our history as a people, right? We've been boiled down so hard for the last 100 years. When we try to ask for help, right, when we scream top our lungs, our voice gets silenced. And because that voice being silenced, we're kind of like in a mentality where, oh, well, I know I said something that's going to happen. Even I be talking 2022, I think we're still in this kind of holding phase where we do a little shouting, a little trying to change, but it gets shut down because the system isn't really understanding the hardships of being Black and being Black men in America particularly. So I think it is difficult. It's difficult to, again, create these safe spaces like tonight where we're having these real discussions, right? Where we're having these conversations with our next generation of leaders, right? We have conversations at work. It's difficult because we are still on the eggshells where, oh man, I have an issue. We deal with it later. So I think we have to be very intentional moving forward, because if not, we're going to have the same cycle of problems passing down to our next generation. So I think we are at a pivotal stage of our lives as Black men to have these real conversations, because it may be uncomfortable at first, but I think when we start breaking these silos, we can have, I think, a small, better shot on really having these conversations. How can we heal not only individuals, but as a community?
Yeah, so I definitely think for me, I sit in a space where I can see what Keith is saying, but I also feel at the same time things are changing. And I want to push back a little bit on this notion that actually Black men in particular find it hard to speak about their mental health. I'm a huge rap hip hop fan. I listen to rap music all day, every day. And if you just look at the catalog of albums that have been released in the last, I would say 3 to 4 years, you're going to see PTSD here, anxiety, depression here. I think that, our culture is evolving it to a point where we can actually, or actively try to have space and try to have discussions about our mental health. I didn't find it, but there was kind of a Future meme a while back where it was kind of like saying, y'all think Future's talking about this, that, and the third, but he's really talking about heartbreak in like every single song that, he was releasing at the time. And I think that there's some truth in that. I think that, we're at a point where we can kind of put it in front of, everyone's face now and say, hey, these are the things that may be going on with our community or within our community. I think that the next step is, what do you actually do about that? And I think that that is the conversation that's not being had, so to speak, right? I can recall, for example, being a young Black male, I'm 26, I'll be 27 in a few months. When I, first got engaged, it was like the world opened up for me to hear from Black men about, oh, don't do this, don't do that. You need to know about this, about relationships, that about relationships. And I was like, oh man, no other aspect of my life have I ever had this kind of contact or kind of this kind of insight from y'all, but it's there. Right. I think that though is just an example of something within the culture that's kind of established, how to do marriage or the do's and don'ts, regarding marriage. I think now it's just us learning again what to do. And that's kind of the next step that, we have to have. But that's just my little 2 cents.
This was definitely the $1 million question. As I said earlier, not often do I put so much time into preparing for, a conversation, but this one really had me thinking. So I have a bit of a background in, not a bit of a background, I have a background in anthropology, studying that at the University of North Carolina, specifically medical anthropology. And so a lot of things register to me under the lens of culture. And so the 3 things that I've kind of extrapolated, with addressing this question is, I would say Black culture is one of those sides of things that makes it difficult to address these issues and to talk about them as Black men. I would say education and access is another facet, and work culture. And I think these things have already come up, to some degrees in our conversation so far. So, to speak to the Black culture piece first, I think there's definitely subcultures, where it is safer spaces to talk about. But I think even to some extent, as it relates to like rap and hip hop, I think it's in front of our face that there's a crisis, in the Black male community as it relates to mental health. And it's in front of our faces, but we're still not having open dialogue about it. Like, it's featured in the music, it's present in front of our faces, but then it's a hit. It trends, it's popular, people resonate with it, but then we don't end up having a conversation about how do we stop the next artist from having that type of experience where they need to make that type of music, because when you listen to it, it's actually, very sad. It is about heartbreak. It is about depression. It is about suicidal ideation. It's about struggle. It's about loss in a lot of ways. But unfortunately, we're still not unpacking those things and having comprehensive dialogue about it, because although you might speak to it, if you actually now talk about it, it requires an additional level of vulnerability that rap in the music industry allows you to actually mask, to some extent. And then at the same time, just outside of the music space, it sometimes gets presented as being weak. When you say that you need help, when you do, have that breakdown and you cry and you have these emotions, and also you don't want to be perceived as not being able to handle it, being able to, keep things together, because that's the expectation. The world expects the Black man, especially in our communities, but just the world expects us to be the champion, to be the Malcolm X, the Martin Luther King, to always be fighting, to always be a superhero, to always be top tier and on and able to take on every challenge all the time. So I want to correct one thing. I guess it's not just Black culture. It's, the culture and how the Black man is viewed in all of these different ways. It's unrealistic and inhuman, expectations that are placed on us. Now, the lack of education and access, there might be the situations where it is on some people's radar, like, hey, mental health is an issue, with something I need to do something about. But then what? One of the fundamental issues is there's not going to be some comprehensive educational experience that a lot of people are going to go through to say, this is how you identify that something's going on with you. And if you are aware of it, this is what you need to do to actually address it. And even if you do have the awareness that you need help, where are you going to go in most Black communities? And even in a non-Black community, where is it that you're going to go to find a culturally competent person that looks like you that's actually going to be able to provide you that treatment? Because you start talking about certain things, and then you have insert whatever provider in front of you that doesn't relate to your experience, ready to call somebody thinking that you're going to shoot the place up, because now they're scared, because there's also this stigma and this bias. It's like, oh wow, like he's about to go crazy in here. And so that's like that education, that access is another piece of it. And then I think another piece is like the work and potential downstream implications, that if you do actually like truly say what's on your mind and what's on your heart, first of all, it would be terrifying to anybody to actually know what lies beneath the surface with so many of us. But then to end up saying that to a provider, they might try to put you in an asylum, and then what's that going to mean for work? What's that going to mean for future prospects? Whether it's political or whether it's just the next job, they're going to say, hey, have you had issues with this or that? And if you end up saying yes, what do you think is going to happen after you expose that deep, dark part of yourself? Now, some of it might be misplaced and nothing actually will happen to you, but there's also a lot of very real implications. Example, if we express some of the things that we're thinking about or some of the ways that we're feeling with some of these providers and that stuff gets documented, like that's going to go into your records. And then when you're looking for health insurance later on, your premium is going to be extremely high, or you're probably going to get rejected because now you're at risk. And now you don't have life insurance or health insurance, which is vital to the Black community. And we definitely don't get enough life insurance, and our life expectancy is abysmal, in this nation and around the world. So those are the three like big veins that kind of like popped out to me while thinking about why it's difficult for us to talk about this.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I guess I'm glad that you sat down and you thought it out, because that was very good, and I like the categorization of like Black culture, education and access, and then work culture, and how we have been deemed in these different spaces that have made it hard for us to have these types of conversations. And I guess it's important that, and I'm happy that I was able to host this platform, have this conversation with you all, which is doing what we need. Well, a little part of a big issue that what we need is just having the conversation. It also sounded like there's a lot of issues around the healthcare providers and having culturally competent care, which I think is very true. Like currently, I'm actually looking for a therapist for myself through my insurance, and they don't make it easy to try to find whether it's a Black doctor or a Black therapist. And they're just hard to find in general. But I think that's another part of it, as you're saying, because we have been othered for centuries, and there are a lot of other biases that are held by other people that, especially in today's world, can be seen in the wrong light and have us in different situations. I do want to say, definitely at the least, like try to see a provider, even if it's not someone who is culturally competent, because they mightn't be able to help you with everything, but they'll definitely get you on the path to start thinking more about it. And I think that's important, because you need to talk about it, think about it, and then action on it. And I think that's one thing that we all can do. And just like having these conversations with our friends around it is so important. And I was going to ask this question here, but I think it's a little heavy, so I'll ask it maybe later on, or maybe in the part 2 of this episode. So I wanted to preface this next question with saying, so the first time that I saw a therapist, I was in undergrad, and I was feeling alone, depressed, being a Black guy from the Caribbean in this predominantly white school, not being close to my family. It was hard for me at that point in time. I dropped out for a semester. I withdrew from classes. But I took that advice, and I got the therapist, and I got to get like actionable tips to help myself better understand my mental health and what I can do to actually be better. Although since then, I stopped seeing a therapist, and the last time I saw a therapist was the beginning of this pandemic, not because of the pandemic in itself, but my ex-partner broke up with me at that point in time. So it was a very hard time for me. But I think like even that disconnect and having that mental health service and having somebody to support me throughout that time is something that I think is something that we don't think about. We're like, oh, let me go to this person. Oh, it's fixed. And now we go on with our lives until the next big episode happens or the next big issue happens, which I think it should be a consistent relationship that we're having with this person, this professional that can help us think through it. But I guess back to that point is we need more providers who are culturally competent and that look like us in these spaces. Okay, so the question is, what moment in your life, like this, and I'm guessing you alluded a little bit to it earlier, but what moment in your life made you think about the importance of your mental health? And yeah.
I can try to be not as long-winded this time. But I think I'll actually kind of add a follow-on question to your question, which is also the point that I got a therapist for the first time, which was after my father passed away in January of 2020, and my older sister had passed away a few weeks before that, right before Christmas in December of 2019. And I was already in a position where I was just finished grad school. I'm doing this administrative fellowship now in the Midwest, feeling guilty because my father was suffering from congestive heart failure at the time. So I already felt like I needed to be back at home the first, few months that I was starting my fellowship, this new job. But both my parents said, no, you need to be there. This is your life. This is your journey. Start your story. Long story short, 4 or 5 months into the fellowship, like I said, my sister passes away. Then my father passes away right after that. And I was just in a dark place. I was in a really hard place where I felt very distant, from my father between me finishing graduate school, going through graduate school and starting the fellowship. Felt like he didn't have a chance to really see the man that I was becoming. And just to even be more personal with this, my sister had just been actually re-entering society, and for coded language for those that are listening and understand that, and was taken from our family 3 days after she had re-entered. So she was turning over a new leaf, and this had happened to me. So and I'm also in St. Louis, one of the, what I would say, most racist cities in the United States of America. So all of these things are just happening to me. I feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulder. Do I stop my fellowship and do I go back home to try to be with my mom and support her by losing a husband, losing a child? How am I there? What does this mean for how, upset I am about all of the issues that our people go through, all these different things. And I ended up having to go to a therapist actually through my job's employee assistance program. Everyone, my family, all of my teammates were like, yo, you got to go see someone. Cause I guess I'm a testament to a Black man. I was like, nah, it's cool. I'm okay. I'll cry and it'll be good. No, not at all. So I go, ends up being this middle-aged white guy who was a magician, had cards and was doing card tricks our first session, and it threw me off because I was thinking like, no, I need somebody who understands like what it is to be Black and to go through these things. And I knew, despite him being different, I had to be vulnerable. It was going to be on me to get the best out of his services. And I'll be really honest with y'all, I only went 3 times because the pandemic did happen, and I was just like, I'm not trying to do this virtually, I'm not gonna lie. But in those 3 sessions, one of the things that we ended up talking about, he, somehow we got to a point of talking about the comic books that we liked. And I told him I was a big Batman fan. And he was like, oh, you're a Batman fan. I'm like, yeah, I've kind of used that as like, my outlook, my career outlook. I want to save, people like Batman. He was like, man, that's kind of deep. And he had told me, he was like, yo, does Batman create joy or does he heal pain? And which one do you think is a heavier burden? Trying to create joy or trying to heal pain? And he was like, Bruce Wayne, he heals pain. He tries to be a direct response to the pain. But his father, Thomas Wayne, businessman, philanthropist, he's trying to create joy and insulate people from all of the ills. And that was like groundbreaking to me because it was a new paradigm for myself. Like, whoa, no longer am I going to be this Bruce Wayne Cape Crusader trying to look for all these issues and look for these things. Instead, my paradigm when it comes to how I show up, how I serve, how I support is really going to be trying to create joy, creating the health, creating that positivity. And that was something that I got out of therapy from a middle-aged, white magician that I never thought would have had anything relevant to say to me. And so that was, the first time and the direct result of me, going through an episode or a situation and needing some professional help.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Winston. It means a lot that you're, able to be vulnerable and definitely share, your truths with us. I think definitely for me, I think there was like a lot of moments, where I realized I needed to like take my like mental health seriously. Like I was faced, with these key moments. And so acutely, I did try to do something about it, but it wasn't anything long term. It would just be, oh, I'm gonna go get this resolved and I'm gonna go ahead and keep it moving, not understanding that you need to be doing this regularly and consistently, just as you would with going to the gym, maybe not, as many times a week, but there does need to be some type of like consistency with it. So, for me, there definitely was, the undergrad situation, where I started off in community college, Durham Tech, and then I transferred to UNC Chapel Hill. And that was just like a totally different level, of competition. I felt lost. I didn't feel like I belonged, extreme imposter syndrome, trying to, be Muslim in this space. And so having this like religious, crisis, and this identity crisis and this journey of self-discovery. And, also like still trying to go to class with having like an ear infection because like I didn't like shake my ears out good enough from like the swimming classes that I was taking. And I was just kind of down and out. And then I was still trying to submit assignments remotely, but then they weren't being accepted. And so I was getting zeros, on some of these assignments, and I like couldn't even get up to go to student health, and so I was just like, I just felt like broken and defeated because I'm like, my family needs me to do this. My community needs me to do this. Like I have to perform and I'm not performing, and pretty much like I folded, in our like living room one day. And I was just in there and I was like trying to get to like a roommate. Nobody was there. Everybody was in class. And I just kind of like looked at the window and I was like, I just go through this, like, and that'll be it, but I didn't even have the energy to move. And so I'm thankful that I did not have the energy to move because it allowed me to stop, and say, okay, I need to I can't give up, but I can't keep trying to just like push through and to fight through. And so I ended up going eventually ended up going to like the student mental health on campus. And, it was, I'm pretty sure like all white providers, but I scared the first person, that came to talk to me. I started saying what was weighing on me, what I was thinking, what was going on. And she said, give me just a moment. She left the room and a man came in, and he sat down and he took over. And I was like, I need to stop talking. I was like, because I'm going to get kicked out of school. Like if I keep talking because I am not expressing something appropriately. And then and so I learned how to talk in a better way to express my feelings, that would still be that would give me some help, but wouldn't end up having me like in a compromised, position. And, did that for a limited amount of time, but I didn't go as much as I needed to, and I ended up turning to like self-medication, such as, just drinking, excessively. And, I almost got kicked out of UNC, for drinking. Like I wasn't in the wrong or anything like that, but I was, passed out drunk on campus, trying to get to Franklin Street for Halloween, woke up in the emergency room, and so then I'm trying to pay with my little bit of pennies out of pocket so this doesn't show up on my parents' insurance, not knowing how insurance worked at the time. But so I thought everything was taken care of. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to be hungry, for these next, couple months, because I'm not trying to get, caught out trying to be in trouble. And then I got a confidentially sealed email, from one of the dean's offices or something like that, saying that you're going to come to basically honor court because, we're contemplating, kicking you out of school. And so that was one of those things where I was like, that wasn't I need help. That was I got to get my crap together, type situation. I had blonde hair at the time. So I ended up shaving it all off, and just getting a low fade. And, I went in there and I made my case. I was like, look, I need to be here. I'm letting the pressure get to me. I'm going to take care of myself, which I ended up doing. But again, I did not do it as long as I needed to. So it was enough to get me through undergrad, but then I went on to medical school. And then again, pretty much the same cycle, happened again, being in Seattle, bad weather, whole lot of stress, far away from family and networks, performing at a different level, again, crumble, literally folded underneath a table one day while I was studying anatomy, and I was like, dang, I'm here again. I need to get help. So this time I went to another white woman, very sweet, and she really helped me talk through, a lot of things, and then there was even pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and it's clearly I'm kind of thick-headed, but eventually I realized I'm okay, I need to start doing this more consistently, but I think the real thing that to get to the actual question and to answer that, the thing that really made me take my mental health seriously is when I understood how what goes on with me has impacts on others, because unfortunately, I hurt a lot of people, I didn't realize it, I thought I was just, doing my thing, and I just wasn't aware, that there was just so much harm that was being done. And then when it finally did, click, I was like, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm, as you said, Omari, I'm trying to help the world. I'm trying to heal society, but I'm actually being a menace, unintentionally, but a menace nonetheless. So I was like, I need to really, tighten up, because, I'm going against, what I believe to be my purpose. And so that's what has really locked me in, to understanding that this is something that has to be, consistent and, done with intention and diligence.
Oh, wow, Jim, thank you for that, man. That inspires me, really, as I go through my journey. I guess my trigger was, and Winston could contest to this, was my grad school experience. I had this notion that, I'm gonna finish on time, I'm gonna take care of it, I'll be good to go, but I didn't finish on time because I felt I wasn't appreciated and valued. And that was my first snap. I literally snapped. I don't know Winston knows that. I literally just gonna say forget everything, That was my first snap. My second one, I would say my 6th year of my marriage, that I was gonna have a divorce, right? And coming from my family background, my mother, father got divorced, my uncles and aunts never got married. So I didn't see a really good nurturing environment to cultivate marriage and loving people. So therefore, that's why I was on autopilot for 30-some years. So when, I was at the point of getting divorced, I said, I gotta fix this. What my values are, my family. I put that at the pedestal. My kids, my wife. But at that point, I didn't know how to love my wife. I didn't know. So that was in 2020. At that point, I was very intentional on finding a young Black man who's in my age, in my 30s, right? And he helped me to really talk things out, because I didn't realize at that point I had so much to unpack. I had a childhood trauma going on, floating through undergrad, playing around in grad school, and here I'm now Keith, bro, you gotta stop playing around, man. This life is pretty serious, man. Because sooner or later, your kids gonna get older and you're gonna repeat the cycle over and over again. So at that point, my therapist, he was rough for me now. He broke everything down. He broke down Keith, how you were at 5 years old, how you were at 10 years old. So he did like things at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, right? So I can pinpoint those exact moments in time where I didn't really express myself as I should, right? To seek that help out. So it took those 2 moments, grad school and my marriage to realize that Keith, you need help, brother. You need to find a somebody you can relate to, who can tell you the truth. And from those 2 years, I'm able to tell my story to other people. Like, it's okay to seek therapy. It's okay to find a village of Black men, that you're not by yourself, that you actually can do this. You can achieve what it is to achieve. So from that point, able to, really, identify even today, my triggers, and accept the things, a Narcotics Anonymous term, you can accept things you cannot change. I realized that I can't change. I can change myself first. I can change one person. That one person can change 5 people, and that 5 people can change 10 people. So that's like my motto now. Because yes, to Zamar's point, I do want to save the world. My purpose is making the community a better place, right? And a more healthier, rich environment. That's the goal. But achieving that goal, I realized that I gotta be realistic with this. Some people, when we deal with change, right? Change being resistance. Everybody trying to change their behaviors. Oh yeah, man, I ain't got time for that. That's cool. But as long as I at least plant that seed, right? Give you, from my experience or give you information that can support you, then I did my job. Because you might not get it now, but next 5 years you may get it. Oh yeah, man, Keith Green helped me, by mental health. He helped me provide scholarships and go to grad school for free. But again, my job, I realized, through this 2 years of therapy is, I'm at a point where I accept things I cannot change. I'm feeling I can change myself. Like every day I make sure my mind, body, and soul is enriched, that I'm doing what I need to do to still be that role model for my children, to be a good leader for my wife, to be a good thought partner to my communities I serve, right? To be, the best version of myself at work. So I think it helped me a whole lot to even today unlock things I kind of held in place for a long time. I'm talking about 30 plus years. Then now I'm at a point where I'm at that stage, being 37, going on 37 December, that, hey, Keith, man, you need to share your story to people. You might never know who you might impact. So that's why I really am a big advocate on mental health and self-awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, well, firstly, thank you all for being just authentic and open and candid about your stories. I think, as you said, it is important to share those stories. And as Keith said, like planting that seed, because you never know when that seed is going to blossom. But if it's never planted, then there's no possibility for that, as well as depending on where someone is in their thought process and their journey. Just hearing that might just trigger them to learn something else or go back to it, as Keith was saying, and then, Keith said this, and then they take that action. So I guess to that point, I advocate for everyone that's watching this to, just try to be a resource and help someone else share your story, be authentic and open with others. And another thing that I heard from all of you was that this is a journey. It's not just one and done and I'm done with this, but it's a journey. And as we know, life continues to go, and they're just new opportunities or new challenges that come up as opportunities. And every day is a day for us to strengthen our mental health and do the things and take the actions for the person that we want to become and for the world that we want to see come about. And just the last thing that all of you were saying was just that self-awareness and how important that is to just getting anywhere with your mental health, is realizing where you are and then doing that hard work of looking back and seeing what are those traumas, what are those triggers, what are those different points in your life that have come up and made this mental health issue come up and make it however it appears in your life. So I really, really appreciate you all sharing that there. So how do we create more safe spaces and communities for Black men to open up about their mental health challenges? And before you will answer that, be sure to like this video if you're watching this on YouTube, share with a friend. We greatly appreciate that. I think this is a very rich conversation, and if you don't share it with other Black men in public health, and we're a small niche, I would say, so like it's very, very important that I think that we look out for each other. So how do we create more safe spaces for Black men?
Well, Zamir, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You got it.
No, bro, you got it.
All right, appreciate it. Yeah, so I mean, I think I have like a bit of a reputation of like thinking about things like very comprehensively and very big, policies and and all this different stuff. But I'm really not focused on policies today, because out of the range of strategies, I think it's as Keith said, it's really important to think about the things that we have the most control over, which is ourselves. And so, the things that I think, are really important to creating that space is to continue to have conversations like these in public, but also in being vulnerable about our own mental health, journeys, that we're on, because, I think we've all shared, this is not, one and done. Okay. Thank you, hope to never see you again. This is, it's healthy to have a provider, it's a team effort, success, requires a team, and so a part of my team, and I would say that this should be a part of everybody's team, is that you have, mental health, providers, and support. But the way that we continue to create these spaces is, to, continue to have these conversations, talk about our journeys, and be vulnerable about that, be real. Because a lot of times, we're just unfortunately being inauthentic. We feel like, we live in this age of social media where everything has to be, like sunshine and rainbows, and it's always got to be the super duper awesome vacation pics and stuff, and you don't got to put yourself crying on the net either, but you can still just be real, at the same time that everything's not perfect all the time, and I think sharing very like valid resources, and like I put that in like all caps here, like valid resources, not just misinformation, and just, oh, you just need to get out here, and you just need to drink more water, like that can help certain things, but that's not really about to like take care of everything at all. But supporting each other on an interpersonal level is extremely important. Supporting the organizations and the individuals, that are involved in this work, that are doing this work, to put our money where our mouth is, to create, to support the people that are creating these, these spaces. And like, I'm not going to like swear on your live, Omari, but we need to like stop being butts to one another. If somebody's telling you that they're not feeling well, if somebody's telling you that they're having a hard time, it's not a joke. It's not something that needs to be made fun of. It's nothing to say like, oh, you're being soft, or you being weak, or oh, like, get over it, bro, like just keep it pushing, or whatever. Like, it's important to actually acknowledge the humanity of others, and to actually step up and be supportive, and just be a decent human. And I think a lot of times that really ends up going very, very far, and sometimes we don't think about that. We're always looking at the big system, and as a person that works with a lot of programs and policies, and that's always looking at the machine, I'm always still looking at people too. And we can't forget that a lot of times we put all of our energy towards, we got to dismantle racism, and we absolutely do, but we also got to help each other. So we can't get so lost with looking at the things that are going to take generations to address, when we can directly help and support somebody here and now. We have those opportunities every single day, and we unfortunately oftentimes miss those opportunities because we're not focused on them. So I would just say that we need to really tap in with the people that are around us, and that we do have connections with, and that's how we can create these safer spaces.
Yeah, I definitely echo everything that Zamir said. I think he actually said it wonderfully. And I love the theme of self-awareness in this discussion, in this conversation, because I feel like that is sometimes a big piece. And to that, what I would say is, in order to create safe space, obviously you have to be able to do that for yourself. And, it's important to not only be vulnerable with whoever, but to be vulnerable with yourself. As we've all said, because even as men, as Black men, just as humans, it could be hard sometimes to face what you're going through, or what you've went through, period. just even you allowing yourself to tell yourself you're going through something can be really challenging for folks. So I would just encourage anyone who is listening or that will listen to this, yeah, just to lean into that vulnerability with yourself first, if not anybody else, whether you have to write it, say it out loud. I know I write raps. I write raps sometimes and just try to make songs to express, how I'm feeling. I think that another thing that I would, want to recommend everyone do, and just listening to all of our stories, we all had some kind of occupational status that allowed us to have, proximity or close access to resources. So understanding that everyone listening to this or people going through things may not have the same resources, be intentional about the kind of content that you're absorbing. I'll tell y'all, this is not, a free plug or anything, but there's a page that I found a month ago while I was going through this and, realizing I need to step back in, step up my mental health, work. Express Yourself Black Man on Instagram. It's a page that popped up, and, the guy, he has a podcast, but he was talking like, yo, like when you're depressed, when you're, suffering from anxiety, like, should you not want a post on like IG? You'll be scrolling through like random IG posts to be something positive, or be something about your situation. And I was like, oh man, like that's totally true. So now that page I visited all the time, and I intentionally absorb that content, just to make myself, feel better, feel more connected. And so that's the second thing I would do. Just be intentional about, what you're doing and what you're absorbing, even if it isn't directly, or the initial step isn't going to see a therapist. And then the third thing that I really just want to say, that Zamir already said, it's been a skill for me, y'all. I mean, for everything that we've talked about, it's been a skill that I've had to build up, is being there to support each other. My dad was a lone wolf. I always coined myself being a lone wolf, had a few, really close friends, but everything on where I'm from and my environment, who you can trust, and all that nonsense, right? About not necessarily allowing, other Black men to lean on you and leaning on other Black men. Since, and even well before my father passed away, I understand now the significance of having just a solid core group of men in your life. Like I really have, especially when I'm the man of my household now, and I'm one of the only, male figures in my family that people, look to. So it's like, wow, I know that I need that. So when my homies call me this year, I have not said, yo, what you crying for? Giving them that, that typical reaction that I can admit last year and every other year of my life, I would have given them. This year, only even because of my own personal journey, I'm really opening up and like, bro, like, how does that feel, bro? Yo, okay, I'm listening. Like, damn, bro, like, this is what you're going through. And so I just try to be really, really intentional with that as well. Allowing, other men to lean on me, and allowing myself to get the support from other men when they're offering from me as well. So those would be, my 3 things on how to create safe space.
Woo, man, it's hard act to follow you guys again. Just breath of knowledge. I love you both. I just want to let you all 3 know that I love and appreciate you all being candid and being realistic on support services. And you asked the question, how do we create safe spaces? And I noticed a common theme we kind of talk about self-awareness, the humanity part. I think we focus so on top, like, oh, somebody will give me resources, but to your point, Zamar, our resources aren't created the same, right? It may be hard for you to get more resources because you work at a certain job, right? Or you may be somewhere else where there's no resource available. And what I had to learn is really start, in your own house, right? What do I have in front of me? I have my 2 kids, my wife. Or I call, hey, Winston's living, hey, Winston, are you free, whatever? Let's sit down in my house, have a cup of coffee or tea, right? Have a 30-minute conversation. And from there, that could lead to a monthly, right, discussion just on, what create a topic, right? You have monthly discussions, right? And from them discussions, that can lead to the community efforts. Then community efforts could lead to, workforce, changes, right? Having more sensitivity training at work, right? So I learned to start small, identify what I already have, right? What do I have at my disposal, right? Whether it be you have a dog or a pet, or just taking time to write down your thoughts, right? But for me, just starting on what you have, identify what you already have, right? First step. And for me, identifying what men are available to have these vulnerable conversations. Because initially, at first, I'm not going to tell you everything about my life, but through time, through that trust and building up relationships can lead to other possibilities. They can lead to more community, engagement, to lead more building relationships at work, right? Those trust factors. Then from there, they can see, hey, we need to, to my point, on the positive, say, hey, I see need to pour more money on these services because there's a big discussion in my community now on mental health. So I got no choice but to provide more funding, more resources, more allocation towards the community. But now communities have this unified front that, hey, Representative, we need a discussion around mental health, dog, because right now, according to national health, mental health, that is still 30% amongst Black men versus other our counterparts. So these are the facts. This is going to community, and let's have a discussion. So I think, again, going backwards is really starting, what you have. Then from there, it transitions to your house, your community, the local, then hopefully the federal, they'll see that, hey, we need to have this real ongoing discussion on, in this case, in this topic of Black men in public health. So those are my 2 cents.
I appreciate that 2 cents. I felt more like dollars on dollars on dollars from all of you all. I definitely appreciate that. And yeah, and just to say, I know that we chatted a little bit before that we might have a part 2 of this. I think we're definitely going to have a part 2 of this because I have a couple questions more that I want to get you, but there was a question in the chat that I just wanted to raise up, and I think that will play well into our last question for this session. So be sure to subscribe if you have not as yet, so you don't miss the next session that we have, and follow on all the different platforms. But the question was from Victoria Pittman, and she asked, how often do each of you take time to show yourselves grace, and in what ways?
So I would say, Victoria, I'm really just learning this lesson. This is all happened in the last 2 or 3 months. I think now I'm really trying to take time to give myself grace every single day. On my calendar, I have mental health breaks all throughout my day now, where I literally get up, I block it in at the start of my morning. Okay, what meeting is going to be stressful? What's going to be, what may be a little too much? And then I literally purposely after that, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, not gonna lie, where I will just block off time. And I literally might go to the park to play some basketball, just shoot some hoops, get my mind off it. I might take a walk if I can, read a book, might be on, Xbox for a little bit. And that's really just how I'm doing that, every single day. And I've probably started that, for a month. And just the one thing, and I'll shut up, but also just, keeping my family up to date and making sure that they know where I'm at, and, taking the expectation away from that they necessarily need to do anything or need to support me, but just letting them know, hey, I may be in this space where I'm feeling a certain type of way. So I may not need y'all to look to me to do everything this weekend. Okay. And so those are just some of the, small things that I've been doing, but I've been trying to do it every single day. No joke.
Yeah, I have a saying, I had this on written down. I'm doing my best. I feel sometimes I'm too hard on myself because, I have a certain expectation of myself at this point. But, to your point, Victoria, is the way I show grace is that acknowledge that I'm doing my best. That I'm not getting it right. I have another day to get it right the next day. At least I try, my best for that day to reach my task for the day. Some days I might miss the mark, right? I might not get to all the assignments I have to do. I might not do it, but I have to ensure that I am doing my best and knowing that, and not be too hard on myself. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm messing up. What I'm gonna do? I'm gonna explode. But taking a step back, I love Winston said, I do have times throughout the day, I got to chill out. I'm on the computer all day. My head about to explode. I take 15 minutes. I have it on my calendar, 15 minutes, my time to just chill out and do nothing. I allow my brain to rest because I've taken in so much information every day. So I have to take time, just to relax, or even during the morning time, take time to at least 10 minutes to meditate, get my mind ready for the day. During the daytime, take time to reflect during the daytime. So that was part of my grace. I give myself to, really get my mind right, morning, afternoon, and nighttime to see, reflect and reset to prepare for the next day. So again, to Winston's point, I can't emphasize that I do have to, this is the year I have to, really, take more time for self-care and self-reflection for myself, because I was beating myself so hard that, I realized I'm doing my best. So again, I'm learning as well to be more intentional and really, being thoughtful on how I navigate the day.
Yeah, I've been giving myself some grace lately. I'm not gonna lie. For a little while now. I definitely for years, definitely like push myself beyond my limits, and every time I felt like there was like a little bit of energy in the tank, I'm like, all right, cool. Like I can get back in my bag, I can get back to it. And then next, I'm like, I'm gassed out. I'm like, dang. I'm like, but I rested. And I'm like, listen, you've been running on E and fumes for like decades, like just trying to make it, just trying to get to a certain level, and then I was like, man, but also like running off of anxiety and fear, of not getting to a place of stability, and so when that switches, that fuel changes, then it's like you're not pushing yourself as hard because you have to learn how to tap into something different. You have to be motivated by something bigger and more, because before it was fear, it was anxiety, it was being afraid, and then I kind of got out of that place. I'm like, okay, like I'm comfortable now. And then like that pressure came off. I was like, I lost my edge. I'm like, how can I get an edge back? And so I kept trying to push myself to be a way that I was, but the way that I wasn't healthy, and so I've been giving myself a lot of grace to rediscover, what drives me, what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to accomplish, now. And so, maybe I'll give myself a little too much grace on some things. Nothing's falling apart, so that's good. But I've definitely, some days I'm like, I'm still on the couch, I'm still chilling, I'm doing my work, I'm doing my job, but I'm like, dang, I'm not like in the community, I'm not the way that I really want to. I'm not doing the service, I'm not working on some of these business endeavors and building this empire, I'm like, but that's okay. I'm like, it's okay to actually take it easy, let myself build up internally, because this next, I don't even want to say this next push, because that's acute, these 20-year goals that I just like set for myself, yesterday, this is not a sprint. I can't use that undergrad mentality. I can't use a younger 20-year-old mentality. Like I'm only getting closer to 30, but like I'm feeling old, like from the way that I've been running myself ragged, like, and Keith, you looking good, brother. Like, I thought you was the same age as us. But definitely giving myself that grace it's been weird, but it's been nice. Cause initially I was giving myself grace, but I was beating myself up for it. So then I wasn't rejuvenating, I wasn't recharging. But then when I started to accept, like, look, you gotta, and I'm sorry, like I'm jumping around. You got to learn how to measure things differently. You got to measure your success differently. It's not always about this big, grandiose output. Sometimes doing those little things like that results in that bigger output later. And so the grace that I've been giving myself has been, like I did do a lot today. It just wasn't anything externally facing. And so, yeah, I'm actually tired for a reason, and I'm going to rest and I'm going to give myself grace and I'm going to charge up, and I'm not about to be up, like stressing, like, oh, I need to, be doing this at this time. And I used to be up all the time, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning working. I am not doing it like anymore, like it's not happening. And, so that's a way that I've been giving myself grace. And so I've been doing it for the past few months, and it's been feeling pretty good. It's taken a long time to recover and heal from like all the crap, and it's still going, but that grace is definitely, part of the lifestyle now.
I think that's huge. Like building in mental health into our lifestyle, building it into our culture and our norms is what we need to do. And I think I'm glad that we had a platform and some time to just sit down and chat more about this. There will be a part 2. And just to close us off, you'll give me 1 or 2 actionable items around how you take care of your mental health.
Does it only have to be 2?
If you can make it as quick as possible. I'm not trying to hold anybody too late.
See, I'm energized now. I was tired earlier. Now I'm like, this is important, and I'm feeling good. I would say I laugh a lot. Like I start even off the day on my teams, sending GIFs or GIFs, however you say it, memes, and and everything like that, to help them laugh, but to help myself laugh, to not take things too seriously. Like I laugh a lot every single day, but for me, I think the way that I'm taking care of my mental, well, the actions, the actions is that, I take personally, and they're the 5 F's, is that this is my priority matrix is, is faith, fitness, family, fun, and funds, FUNDS, the first thing that's happening when I wake up is I'm praying. Then I'm actually doing something for my fitness, whether that's my mental health or my physical health, or my emotional or social health. My family, is situated in there. My family, friends, that's, a big priority, making sure to have that time to connect and spend time, but making sure that I'm having fun, and then the funds, all of that comes into play because I'm taking care of those first 4 things, so that, and I invest in my mental health, that's a big thing, when it comes to sometimes the first things that gets knocked off, of our list is things related to our health. And so I had to switch it in my mind to say, I'm going to go ahead and cancel the Hulu account instead of getting rid of the vitamins, if I'm feeling a little bit of pressure, so I'm always trying to invest in my mental health and try new things, to actually be better. So those are just some of the actions since I'm limited in time.
I'll be quick fire, and I'll say just start by creating space for yourself. If anything, creating time for yourself and being honest with yourself, leaning into whatever your truth is and taking the time to do that, however long it needs to take and whenever it needs to happen. And the second thing I will say is start finding some good content. If you are not in a position to start finding therapists, find something that aligns with you, whether it's a podcast, a book, a show, maybe even be an album, may even be a song, but, find something that, can be your form of therapy until you actually get some professional help.
Agreed and agree on both of you guys is what you said. And for me, after therapy, what's helping me daily is I have a journal. It's called an observation log. And what I do it is I write down my gratitude for the day, what I'm grateful for, and what I'm thankful for. And from there, throughout the day, I kind of write things I'm reflecting on as far as how I feel at work today. Was I mad today at work? Why was I mad? Right? What's the root cause analysis of why I'm mad? Right? And towards the end of the day, before I go to bed, I write again and kind of reflect on the day. How did I treat my kids today? Did I call my mom? What we talked about, right? So it's that's helped me to really, focus on things I need to focus on because I was so distracted on so many nuances was keeping me off task. So now I'm able to really focus on being, we use the word again, self-awareness, right? How did I feel today? What made me feel happy today? What are the things at work? What are things at home? What are things community that made me feel well and at peace? So now I'm getting the understanding of what's that peace looks like for me, by, gathering my thoughts on paper, reviewing the last week's thoughts, okay, why did I get mad for a particular thing, right? Kind of pinpointing now on best practices for me and sharing my practices with other people. Okay, bro, if you're mad about this, how you consider doing A, B, and C? So I'm able to kind of document how I felt that day, right? And share out how I felt. And maybe in the long run, I help somebody out. But for me, it's really documenting, kind of transcribing your day, right? From, the moment you woke up to the moment you go to sleep. How did you feel for that day? What are those key things of the day to make you feel bad? Which is okay. It's okay to again, for that grace. It's okay sometimes to have bad days. It's cool. That's part of the human experience, right? There's some days you're gonna feel straight, crap, I would say. But in the long run, okay, how can I kind of identify that and make the next day a better day, right? So for me, this is really just sitting down and being intentional by writing down and transcribing your day.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for sharing. I'm happy that I'm able to share some space with you all. Thank you, Zamir. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Winston. This is definitely not the last conversation that we have. Everyone be sure to follow them or connect with them on LinkedIn. And appreciate you all for tuning in. Make sure to share this with a friend if they weren't able to tune in, and it will be available on podcast platforms soon. Peace out, everyone. Have a great rest of your night.
Appreciate it, Omari.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.